Hey, it's Lillian with Language Matters. I'm here introducing us a video clip with an exemplary ESL teacher named Brooke Hubs, who's out of Virginia Beach. And she is going to talk about two things in this clip: high expectations of her ESL students, and then the best piece of advice that she's given her colleagues about how to support them during pandemic schooling. This video launches a series of interview excerpts that I have with ESL teachers and how they have managed to support their learners during pandemic schooling. Please enjoy.
How does Brooke consider holding her students to high expectations? Well, she centers their social emotional learning. And she does that by saying this very simple quote that it's always Maslow's before Bloom's. Or essentially, we think about their welfare and their needs before we can start to begin getting into the content. And that's the case no matter what, if they're an English language learner, if they're a monolingual student. And there's some good advice, which is backed up by a brief put out by the Council of the Great City Schools Guide to Unfinished Learning. They say the social emotional well-being of our ELLs is more important, now more than ever. Let's hear what Brooke has to say about this.
So to recap this, what an interesting premise that ESL teachers who have worked with interrupted schooling populations already know that these types of traumas go on throughout the world. And so that it's happening to everybody feels like, well, yes, this has always been the case. So let's untether ourselves for a moment to assessments and standards and think about the base needs of a child and start from that place. And is that how you had thought about working with your refugee population up in Rochester?
Absolutely. I mean, it's Maslow's before Bloom's, right? They're not going to learn until they know you care, they're supported, their basic needs are met. Mm-hmm. And until they know that, they're not going to learn. And regular, native English speaking students need to know, just as much as ESL students need to know, that their teacher is there, their teacher cares, they're supportive, and then we can talk about content.
I'm going to push on you. What if somebody said, well, then you're not holding high expectations of that learner?
I think that's the opposite. I think that is me holding high expectations of my learners. You can't perform to the expectations I want to hold you to until you are socially, emotionally ready to do so. So I can skip all that, SEL stuff, and we can stay at level 1 and 2 of Bloom's, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. Or I can spend the time to build that relationship and make sure you're okay, and we can go all the way up to create together.
Okay.
I asked Brooke to tell me what the best piece of advice she's given to her mainstream colleagues when working with language learners during the pandemic. Patience and grace. Patience, because language learning is a long unfolding process that does not happen in linear lockstep fashion. And frankly, patience can be a difficult pill to swallow during this time where we feel so exhausted and so much pressure coming from all sides. But it's a simple piece of advice that's worth repeating and hearing again and again. Let's hear how Brooke describes this in the interview.
A lot of the feedback I'm getting is they're not responding in Google Meets. They're not participating. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. Like, you have to be patient. Put yourselves in their shoes, have some empathy. This is hard. This is hard for everybody. You are a 40-year-old educated adult who speaks English and you're doing this in your native language. Mm-hmm. Not only are these kids trying to do it in a brand new language, they also have parents who are doing this in a brand new language, trying to help them at home. So you need to have grace, and you need to don't push them so hard. That's not what I mean, but be patient with what you're experiencing and what they're producing. And Rome wasn't built in a day. They're not going to be writing essays for you in a week. What they can produce is what they can produce. And you need to be patient while they're learning and while they're, manipulating all these new literacies, English literacies, computer literacies.
Mm-hmm. Hi there. So what did we learn from talking with Brooke? Well, she encouraged us to think about students' social, emotional learning. And how do we do that on the regular? Think about student check-ins over worrying about the attendance roster. Or another example is a free five, where perhaps before you ask for the students whether they've turned in their assignments, just give them 5 minutes to chat about something, what they've been doing, what they're interested in. All of that extra space to develop oral language is going to go a long way in their language development. And then what about what we learned from patience? Well, have patience in your teacher talk. Give a little bit extra wait time and include tons of paraphrases. These are strategies that we know for many years have really helped our bilingual population. And then grace. Remember these things. Everyone is struggling right now. Remind yourself, I'm doing the very best that I can. So are my students. So are their families. And we will all endure. This can't last forever, and perhaps we'll learn some valuable lessons about really how to center our students' social emotional learning throughout their education. If you'd like to learn more, go visit languagematters.org and click on all the content there. Take good care.